Now some developing news out of Italy this hour, and an unwelcome milestone in many ways, because the number of COVID-19 deaths has risen by 427 to 3,405, which means that it is overtaken or has overtaken China's total number of deaths. Our correspondent Sally Lockwood is in Rome this evening, and it is turning into quite a desperate story there, Sally.
That's right, Mark. Italy now has the greatest loss of life globally, a rather huge and horrifying milestone for this country. And it's made particularly more grim because Italy still has far fewer cases of COVID-19, of coronavirus, than China. Now, it's in part down to Italy's older population. It has the second oldest population in the world after Japan. But it's also in part down to the pressure on the healthcare system that we are seeing in the north, in Lombardy. To give you an idea of the pressure and how bad things are up there, the military was called in overnight to help transport some of the bodies because the infrastructure there is simply not coping. The mayor of Bergamo, who spoke to me a few days ago, explained he'd had to close the cemetery because they can no longer cope with the hundreds dying there every day. The church in the cemetery had been turned into a temporary morgue, and soldiers were called in overnight to transport some of the coffins away in army vehicles. Now, Lombardy has one of the most sophisticated healthcare systems in Europe, but they are now lacking just the basics. They are lacking staff, ventilators, oxygen, beds. 8% of the people who have been infected with coronavirus in Italy are medical staff. Meanwhile, 60 million people in the country remain on a strict lockdown, something that was extended today. That was expected to be lifted on the 3rd of April, and now it is in place with no end date. We've been keeping an eye on the number of people dying in the UK and how that compares to Italy. It is following a very similar pattern. There's no guarantee that it's going to escalate in the same way here, but we simply don't know. Nevertheless, the UK and other European countries are following a strikingly similar path.